Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Art of Podcast. I'm Charles.
I'm Bradley.
And today we're going to do drugs.
You paused. Today we're going to do drugs. Yes,
we're gonna talk about
drugs.
We're not going to do them.
Yeah.
A disclaimer, we're both sober.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have
Disclaimer,
any intention.
I've never done drugs. So I'm going to
That's
contribute
right.
once.
That's an important disclaimer.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I think today we're talking about the effects of drugs.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about your experience with some of them.
Okay.
We're going to talk about like the legalese of it, kind of like should we legalize ones or what
Sure.
should be? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Some specific ones too. I did want to talk about psychedelics for a bit.
Oh yeah, you want to talk about that? Okay.
Yeah, we probably have a whole section on marijuana. I'm sure that'll be a big one.
Yeah. Maybe this gets broken up into two. Maybe there's enough content that we end up breaking up into two.
We'll see.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Where do you want to start?
Drugs. Let's start with Benadryl. Okay. How old were you when you first did drugs?
Oof. Okay, I was in high
Also,
school.
we're saying drugs. Weed. I guess we should be saying weed.
Yeah. Okay.
Assuming,
I've pretty much only ever done weed. I started when I was in high school, probably like grade 9 or 10. I think is when I first started doing weed, but I didn't really get into it until probably university. So
I had my first beer at the age of 19. I think.
You are such a good little boy. My God, that's funny. I mean, dude, to each their own. Like, that's fine. I'm sure you had zero interest in doing
It's
alcohol.
just funny the dichotomy that we're going to have. I'm sure we'll end up having a conversation about alcohol at some point too.
Yeah.
Which I don't think we've considered, but maybe it's a good one.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I started weed in high school.
Friends too or something? Like it was a friend thing?
Yeah, we just hang out. We do like, quote, band practices, but not actually.
One guy playing bass in the corner and everyone's
Yeah, no, it's shit like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was purely just a fun sort of friends hangout thing. Then it became pretty significant for me in university. It started becoming like a very like reflective tool for me, like a very sort of quasi spiritual is the wrong word, but very significant.
So that's correlation, not causation, though, right? Like you started doing it in university. It's not that it was like your method of like trying to study or something like that.
What do you mean?
Why were you doing that more?
Oh, well, I mean, I had friends.
Yeah. It wasn't like it was like to deal with the stress of university or anything necessarily.
I mean, that was definitely part of it. I mean, university sucked, right?
Yeah.
So but it was mostly like I would hang out with friends like every weekend, and just because my friends were all stoners, we would just smoke weed every weekend. It was more like, it was like a sort of a friend social. It was like a social thing that just happened to be with weed. It wasn't like weed specifically was the stress reliever. It was just being with friends. Just getting stoned, which was the stress reliever.
So it was almost like going to get coffee with friends or something. Like it was just the means of hanging out.
I mean, sure, but weed really sort of makes things very interesting.
Yeah.
We would what made it really fun for me in university is that I was in res, and we weren't allowed to smoke marijuana in res, so we would always have to go outside somewhere. So it was like every Friday and Saturday that we smoked weed. It would be like an adventure. Like we'd go out to some random spot in the city.
Yeah.
Just get stoned and just like explore and have a really, really good time. And in my opinion, you can't have as good of a time doing that if you were sober.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean that every time you do that you have to be stoned, but it means that doing that while you're stoned adds to the experience.
Okay. So this to preface the rest of this podcast, there might be a few minor tangents just because of my closest experience.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
But so in high school, you said that you'd have to like go out. Reminds me, did you guys have this in high school where like you're not allowed to smoke on the school property, obviously?
This was in university.
Oh,
sorry,
no. But this just reminded me of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. When you're in high school, do you have like the smoking crew that like between classes would quickly run across the street, sit on the green transformers, smoke the cigarettes, and then be 5 minutes late to class?
Yeah, and come to class just stoned out of their minds.
Yeah, we had crossing lights right outside the high school doors, so they would run out the doors, cross the street, sit on this big green transformer, like 6 or 7 of them, smoke the cigarettes. and then be 5 minutes late for class.
Oh, cigarettes.
Yeah, whatever it is at the time. But
okay.
I don't know. Maybe there were some other ones in there. But yeah.
Yeah, we definitely had crews like that in high school. Yeah, I wasn't part of that.
No.
It was purely just like a every now and then.
It wasn't the need
event.
to do it. It wasn't like a crutch that you needed to.
Yeah. It's weed.
Well, it's different. It's a different addictive. Right? Like, you know what I mean?
I would say you could definitely get to that point with marijuana.
Yeah.
I do have my qualms with, not so much with marijuana, but with people who smoke it all the time and think that that's totally okay.
Yeah.
We can get into that if you want.
Or it's fine. No. Yeah. Okay.
You can definitely, if you have enough self-control, which I think your average person does, you can say, I'm not going to smoke weed all the time. Yeah. Like you can say, maybe I'll smoke it on weekends, maybe I'll smoke it once every 2 weeks. People generally have enough self-control to do that. And what I would say is, what really helps is not having the weed around. Like if you want to quit for like a month, it helps to take your weed and put it somewhere else that's not within easy reach.
Weren't you telling me that you had a pretty big dry spell, for lack of a better word, kind of recently? Like you didn't...
Oh yeah, no, well I in the last year, I've probably smoked weed, I don't know, 5 or 6 times in the last year.
Yeah. So once every couple months, kind of.
Yeah.
But,
And it's like, so I just keep my weed at my dad's house.
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't have it here, because if it is here, you're tempted to go, toke up or whatever. But if you keep it somewhere else, as long as you have enough self-control, it's not addictive of a substance enough for a person like that to go out of their way to go grab it and then smoke it. Does that make sense?
Yes. Well, okay. Closest analogy I have once again is I really love rye and Coke. Rye, Coke, Dr. Pepper, whatever.
Okay.
If we have some in the house, I'm not getting drunk on it. I don't mean that, but like it's like any night where I'm just chilling and playing video games, I would have one, right? Like, but I don't have a need for it when it's not in the house.
Okay.
If there's no liquor in the house, I could go a year, right? Like I really have no urgency for it. But when it's in the house, it's like, okay, well, it's here, so it's just that one less step removed, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even if it is in the house, it's not like you feel compelled to be doing it all the time.
No.
Right?
Yeah, but it is just that much easier to partake in. Right.
Like, so back to the addictive part of weed, I would definitely say that you can get to the point where you become addicted. Like, people say you can't get addicted to weed. That's not true. Of course you can get addicted, right? I know people who have gotten addicted, right? I know people who, they're in university, right, taking difficult courses, and they're smoking weed every day because, like...
Yeah.
And it affects their grades, it affects their lives. Like, people like that, I had friends like that who dropped out. Like, they couldn't get a hold of their addiction to weed. They couldn't not do it every day. They couldn't not let it affect their school life, so they dropped out.
I have, and so, I want to get to this part a little later, because I want to get through your stuff first, but that connects to something.
Okay, we'll get into that later.
Yeah. Okay, so you also once told, so you don't do it for the stress relief. You don't do it for the high necessarily. You do it also for the social aspect of it. You've done it for both. Social and for the high.
I do it for a couple reasons. Social is one, even though I'm very picky with who I do it with, because weed makes people very paranoid and antisocial. Yeah. Some people, me in particular, it makes me really paranoid. So I have to be, if I'm doing it with someone, I have to be really comfortable with them. Otherwise, it's a really bad experience.
Yeah.
I do it for social. In school, I did it for stress relief, but since I graduated, I haven't really been stressed enough to actually justify doing weed for stress relief.
Yeah. And you can get to the argument there's probably better ways to handle stress too, anyway.
Yeah.
For sure. With the cause of
for
it,
sure.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, it's the whole thing of like, go out on weekends and have fun. Is that stress relief? Kind of, right?
But like the direct, but is it one for one, right? Like
doing
it for the stress relief necessarily.
The big reason I do it though
is to play drums.
Actually, I forgot about that. Yeah,
okay. We'll get to that too. Okay.
That's the big reason I do it. It's you're a musician, right? I know you don't smoke weed, but trust me, man. If you ever get to the point where you would, pick up your guitar and play it, because it will be the most incredible experience I guarantee you've ever had. Okay, let me know. So there's the music aspect of it, and then there's also weed makes me in particular, but I guess most people, very self-reflective, like very. You think about things to a deep level, and if you're going through kind of a a difficult time in your life or an interesting time in your life, right? I would say marijuana really sort of elevates your perceptions of what's going on, and it allows you to think about what's going on in your life to a level that you might not necessarily get to as easily if you were sober. And it's like a I don't know, spiritual is the wrong term. I'm trying to think of the word for it.
I know what you mean by
you know what I mean.
That. Yeah.
Okay.
So for you, so that is, it's kind of for the high, but it's not for the direct implications of the high. It's for like a secondary.
It's the effect that the high has on your mental capability.
Faculty, yeah.
Not even faculty, but capability.
Okay, yeah.
Like, I'm capable of thinking about things to a way deeper level
really?
when I'm stoned than when I'm
How much of it?
sober.
Okay, now this might be just ignorant Bradley talking.
No,
so
that's fine.
This might be a dumb question.
Yeah.
How much of that is you actually thinking at a higher level, and how much of that do you think is you think you're thinking at a higher level?
That's
like genuine
That's
question.
the classic
right?
stoner argument. It's like, how much. Look, man.
Well, it's like when someone. It's the equivalent being when someone's drunk and they think they're doing something super smooth, they cut to like a third person perspective and they're not, right? Like, I mean, I get that.
I guess the way to measure that would be you'd have to measure it using tangible effects that weed has on your life outside of you just being stoned, right? So if you can, like for me, I became a much better drummer after I started smoking weed and playing drums, right? And that's like, I'm gauging that when I'm sober, right? It's not just me being stoned.
It's not just you thinking you're stoned, but it cut to you like,
right?
boom. Boom, and you think you're like
exactly,
a rock concert,
right? So if you can somehow take elements of your life that are improving and analyze them when you're sober, and say,
so would you think that part of it is a perceived?
Of course,
there's a part of it that is like
there is a part of it that is
deeper
perceived.
than you are, or whatever.
There is a part of it for sure, but it's at the end of the day. I mean, if it's helping you, if it's making you think that you're thinking about things really deeply, it's like.
Is that not worth something almost?
Yeah, I mean, that's worth something in and of itself. And it's like, how could that even be wrong if you're thinking about something deeply?
Because a thought is something you can remember later, right? Like that was a thought, and you can directly remember this deep, like, philosophical, or this, like, A to B to C that you did. Whereas when you're, I played such a good game of bowling when I was high, but you don't remember the score. It could have been horrible, right? Like, that's something that you can't.
I mean, there's both. There's definitely both.
Okay,
for sure. But I would say in my own personal life, I have definitely been able to tangibly measure positive effects that weed has had on me, and I've been able to measure them while I'm sober.
Do you think everyone has positive effects from it, or do you think that people have just bad effects from it?
No, well, it depends on the person. It depends on the kind of person you are.
I know, but do you think some people, have just bad effects, and some people have more good effects?
Yeah, I mean, it's a relative thing. Like it might have some positive effect for you in the moment, but sort of the effect that it has on your day-to-day life and your aspirations, let's say, that could definitely be negative. And it can, in my experience, not personally, but from knowing friends, it can be pretty easy to let weed take over your life and destroy your aspirations, because I know plenty of people who that
So what are your thoughts on people calling weed a gateway drug?
A gateway drug to other drugs? Yeah. Again, it's a relative thing. I would say weed, the degree to which that's true has way more to do with the person who's taking weed than the drug itself.
Because you can, in that same argument, make the argument that cigarettes and alcohol are gateway drugs.
I mean, they are.
To the same people, right? Like, that's what I mean.
Right, to the same people, right? Yeah. If you're someone who has an addictive personality and you're lazy, you have no aspirations. You don't want to do anything except, be inebriated.
You're trying to live in the moment, what they would say, right? Yeah.
I mean, sure, right? Like, it's that kind of person, weed can be a gateway drug too. But people like you and me, who we have pretty stable lives, we have aspirations, we have self-control, right? Weed, to people like that, isn't necessarily a gateway drug. It can be, but it doesn't necessarily have to.
I'm sure studies will show it increases your chances of proceeding to the next by some degree, right?
It's a greater than zero chance, absolutely, right?
Yeah, it's not steering you away from other ones, right? Like, it's not going to actively detract, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So what do you think about it? Because you've never done it. You're also pretty religious, so I don't know if that kind of plays into your perception.
It's both. Like, I just have no desire to from like a physical, human, like material side, no desire whatsoever, and then the religious side.
What do you think? What do you think about it though? Like,
I think we'll get I don't want to give. That'll turn into like the legal conversation of
sure.
it that I want to get to. But my big argument is, so maybe not so much for weed, but especially when we get to other drugs. I think alcohol would even come into this, right? It's like, it's not just how much you're enjoying it, it's the potential harm it causes others. And that's not me saying we should ban alcohol and make that illegal.
Right.
But I think that there is a genuine question about other people that not you, but like
no, I know.
The royal you aren't thinking of, right? I would make that same argument with abortion, right? People say, we'll get, that's a different podcast, but people say my body, my choice, but the other people being the unborn kid, right? In particular, but even like the potential dad or something in that case that have opinions that don't seem considered as, right? They don't seem weighted, right? So I want to do meth. You end up robbing a bank, and then or whatever you end up doing on meth. I don't even know what you do on meth, right? But like, I think there's a moral question in that way.
What do you mean? Sorry, explain that again.
If someone under the influence, if someone starts doing a really hard drug, let's say, right? Okay. And people that do hard drugs get desperate for those drugs, and other people's lives get put in danger for that, which is something you do see. Not to mention the person in question, their life, right? I think that there's a moral problem with those harder drugs. So that doesn't stretch to marijuana.
Well, so then again, the thing is it the drug itself or is it the person doing it? Because you can make the same argument for weed. Like you can say, oh, people who drive high, they're endangering other people's lives. Right now, it's like, is it right? Well, that's my point. It's like, is it the drug or is it the person?
Yeah, and then I guess to the question of legalizing it too. Does making it legal does that mean there's going to be more or less drivers driving high?
Making it legal.
If marijuana is legal versus illegal, which one has more which one has more people driving under the influence? Because you could make the argument legal, more people are doing it by numbers. That way, more people will be driving under the influence. But if it's illegal, you're also driving trying to hide it and pretend you're not high, which might make more people drive high.
You'd be doing that if it was legal, anyway.
No, but if it's illegal. Right? And you're like, no, I'm sober. I didn't do anything wrong. See, I'll drive home. Kind of like I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's really tough. I would say the way bigger determining factor in that is what law enforcement has to accurately determine if you're driving.
Because we still don't have anything.
No, really. We don't. Like,
which I think was the biggest problem in legalizing it, was you don't have any way to enforce any sort of limit.
So my opinion on that is now that it's legal and it's become less taboo, it's easier to do research with it, and it's easier to develop sort of diagnostic technologies, right? That would be the argument. I mean, it's, there's a setback there. Like it's, cops just basically have to judge. My understanding of it is that cops basically just have to judge by eye if they think you're stoned or not. Like if you seem stoned. Okay. I don't know.
And there was also a weird bridge before it became legalized where a lot of doctors were just given out prescriptions for like medical marijuana super easily, right?
That's the other. That would be my argument for legalization too. Another one, because it's like if it's at the point where so many people are doing it, quote, legally,
then why not make it an over the counter like a pharmacy drug almost, right? Like make it so it's available with
and people would bullshit it, man. Seriously, like it's not hard. You didn't need to have some medical issue.
The amount of people a green card, that just said they have anxiety.
Oh yeah,
right. Like the amount of people I know that were like, I have anxiety. Therefore, I get weed. Like, and they were able to like, get that card and everything. I'm like, the amount of people that say they suffer from like some crazy level of anxiety, and like, no, all of you collectively don't. Right. Some of you do, sure, but like you as a collective do not.
Look, I want to talk about this too. There are two parts. There are two components of marijuana, right? There's CBD and there's THC.
I couldn't remember what was CBD. That's what the abbreviation was. Yeah.
Okay, so this plays into this, right?
Can I guess? I want to remember if I get them. CBD doesn't get you high.
Yes.
Both of them can reduce your stress, but CBD is actually known to do it more, right?
Well, so CBD is the medical component, right? Yeah. CBD is what relieves anxiety. CBD is what relieves pain, like migraines or whatever the fuck, right? CBD is the one that has all the medical components. THC is the psychoactive part, right? So if you have, back pain and you want to go to the dispensary and get weed for your back pain, right? You can get CBD oil, not get high, and treat your back pain, right? But what so many people did was they say, oh, I have back pain. I'm going to go to the dispensary and get like the highest percentage of THC that I can get and just get fucked up.
So why did medical dispensaries have THC as an option to begin with? Why wasn't it all just CBD pills?
Because they're probably all stoners, man.
People running these medical dispensaries and stuff.
Yeah. And it's, look, like, I'm not against you smoking weed to get high. Like, that's fine.
But having that as a medical thing is...
Well, it's what bothers me is that people who think that, like, you know, if you have back pain, like, people who they say they have back pain and then they use that as a justification to themselves to get super stoned on weed every single day because it's for a medical reason. It's like, you can do CBD, have that, you know, have the same effect and not be inebriated every single day. Yeah. Right? It's like, it's not...
So maybe I'll come in here. Okay. So I'll come in here. So I worked with a lot of people. I'm not going to say what job I was at. It was a previous job, previous people. We'll just leave the names and everything out of that, right?
Okay.
A lot of people would smoke weed to deal with anxiety or stress, and they would tell you like, oh, if you're stressed by something, you just have to smoke weed. I'm just stressed. Oh, you have no idea how stressed I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's my thing. Is one, you could just get the CBD, and two, I would make the argument that you're doing more damage not learning how to deal with stress and anxiety. Because I doubt, like I said, every single person that says that they have stress and anxiety have medically confirmed, like, something, like whatever it is that gives you that, right? Like depression, there's actual medical depression, and then someone just feels depressed, right? Like there is a difference there.
Right.
It's okay, just because you're anxious, it doesn't mean you suffer from anxiety, right? And I think people would just use that as a crutch or a reason, like you were saying, just to get high.
All the time.
At that point, it's like, well, no, maybe you should learn how to deal with some level of stress, right? Like, you shouldn't need to call in sick to work every other week.
Right.
Because you're having an anxiety attack. Unless you actually do suffer from anxiety. But then you should be like learning how to actually deal with that too. And not just smoke weed. Even if you suffer from anxiety, like you have an anxiety disorder is the right word maybe, but whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
No, yeah.
You probably shouldn't be just smoking weed to alleviate it. Like when it's bad, sure, I guess, or something. I don't know. But look at how to deal with it.
Well, if you use CBD to alleviate it.
Alleviate it. Yeah, that's what I meant, CBD. But you should also be learning, there must be some way to like make progress into learning how to deal with it too, to some degree.
I don't know. I mean, it's tough for me to say because I don't have anxiety. I don't have any disorder like that. But
once again, not everyone that says they suffer from it.
I agree. It's like people definitely use it. Some people definitely use it as a justification to themselves and maybe even to other people for smoking weed all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I have migraines, so I'm going to smoke weed every day. It's like, well, you could do CBD oil.
That's a better example
not get
too.
high.
And also, you have to wonder how much of it is you, since the minute your head hurts, you get high, try to alleviate it.
Right.
Are you going to get that much more aware of more and more minor like head pains? Are you going to become that much like? Are you going to become desensitized to the worst part of the migraine? So even a mild migraine seems bad. Like you know what I mean? Like at what point are you so protective of that? That's a slippery slope that your head doesn't feel 100% right because you slept on it funny. So you need to smoke a joint or something.
Exactly.
Right?
It's like, screw Advil. Like I'm not going to take every time I get a migraine, I take an Advil and it works just fine. Yeah. It's like, no, fuck that. I'm going to get high because I can. Right? Yeah. It's like, to me, that's a pretty easy... That can definitely lead to a pathway of addiction.
Yeah. Like, but once again, you think a lot of it's the person, not the drug in particular. Mind you, it's the drug. It is the person doing that to the person, but it requires the person.
It's the habits. It's the habits of the person that can turn that into a bad thing. It's not the drug itself that's bad. It's the habits of the people who take it. That's. What do you think about? What do you think about that?
The drug. You're saying. I think I get what you're saying too. You're saying that, like, the drug is the catalyst, but you still need the person to have the ingredients, kind of, right? Like the person's the chemicals. The drug is just the initial chemicals present, right? And then the drug is just that catalyst that ignites the person to react.
And if the drug at the same time could be a catalyst for positive things, it's like now it's not black and white anymore. You're in a gray area, and it's not necessarily weed is bad for everyone, right? Like, what do you think about that?
I get that. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know
what's your opinion, though.
I don't know to what level I agree of it, how much good it does or not. I legitimately don't know. Once again, I'm talking to someone that has zero experience with it and zero secondary experience. Like, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like,
yeah, for sure.
Okay, here's another. One time I was driving a coworker home from work, and the light was like turned yellow. probably could have made it through a light, but the car in front of me decided to stop. So I slammed on my brakes, and their purse fell down, and they had a bag of weed in the purse.
Okay.
And the bag opened up, and I just spilled all over my car. And I was like,
great. Was this before or after it was legal?
Let's say after it was legal, just to be
okay.
But my car stank for a while, and it was like I was living with my parents and stuff. And I'm gonna come home smelling like this. This is bad.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, and I was like, that was. Yeah.
Look, man, I've known you way less than your parents do, and I would never for a second guess that you would do weed, but then lie about it if you did.
Funny story though.
Yeah.
So, me and my cousin Blake would hang out. It's not that we stopped hanging out, but our thing was like we would hang out and get coffee and literally just sit and talk with drinking Tim's, listening to music and talk until like all hours, like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. kind of thing.
Right.
No drugs, no alcohol, just coffee. Coffee was our drug.
Okay.
And I would come home and I would go shower before bed or whatever. I think I was showering always before bed then. And I remember one time, I opened the door to the shower and my mom just had her head immediately in the crack of the door, was like, "What are you doing? Why are you home so late?" And started questioning me, and she's like,
"That's funny."
I opened the door. She's trying to get a smell or something maybe.
Oh,
off me
she
or something.
really thought you were doing drugs.
And she's like, "Why are your eyes red?" I'm like, "'Cause it's 2 a.m." There was a few times where she was on before that, or she was worried that Blake would go to the gym a lot, and she was worried Blake could be taking steroids, and she tried to give me a speech once about how if you know someone that takes, and she's like, I started going to the gym and I was packing on some muscle, and she started trying to give me a speech. Steroids are bad. I'm like, I'm not doing steroids.
It's all natural, Mom.
Yeah.
It's all natural.
No, but I was I'm like, are you accusing me of doing it, or are you warning me against it? Either way,
I mean,
you should know me
being
better,
being a good parent's fine.
Yeah, but I'm also 19 or 20, so you should know me by now.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's
funny.
That's funny.
So those are my two. I would not me doing drugs. But weird encounter or something.
Your mom thinking you were doing
I could
drugs.
Be doing drugs.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah. Okay. Do you think you would ever get to the point where you would try maybe marijuana?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Nothing would change your mind?
Nothing.
I gotta say, you would be absolutely insane on
You
marijuana.
mentioned that to me.
No, you would.
Why?
Because your brain works like a billion neurons a second. Your brain is so active all the time, and weed would just make that even crazier.
Would weed accelerate that or slow it down, you think? Or are you just saying it would make it more just wild?
The tricky thing with weed is that it's differently. It works differently for different people. For me, it accelerates it.
So what do you
when
think?
I'm stoned, my brain is
So when you say
just going
I would be wild to see high or whatever, what are you expecting that to be?
I would expect you to accelerate your neural activity.
So
instead
limitless,
of
you're talking limitless. I'm turning back time or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it would be insane.
Yeah.
It'd be insane. If you were in a situation where you were comfortable and you weren't having a bad trip and you were talking with someone who you can really have deep conversations with, I think you on weed would be absolutely nuts.
So you'd want to make sure you're present if that ever happens.
Exactly. Exactly. You got to hit me up.
Okay. What time are we at? 30 minutes of drugs. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've only hit on weed. Do you want to?
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to say about weed?
No. I think I would say it's misunderstood by both anti-weed activists and super hardcore stoners.
I think that's the case for a lot of arguments too. Right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So, do you have any funny weed stories or drug stories or anything? Whether it was you or someone else, just don't use names, or if you saw some random person or something.
Not that I can think of. I'd have to think about that.
Okay, I have another weird one.
Okay.
Once again, I don't know what they were doing. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know these people. I was driving home on Highway 2. Speed limit's 110 kilometers an hour, right? So I'm driving probably 115, 120, just over. And this car drives up beside me. And they start matching my speed. And they're in the passing lane. And I turn around. And it's a guy with a gas mask on in the side seat. With a tube. And smoke billowing out. And the car's filled with smoke.
God.
And the passenger has the mask on. The driver must be under the influence, whatever's coming out of that. And they all of a sudden rip off, going governing. They're governing out. 180 kilometers an hour, I swear.
Okay.
Then all of a sudden I see their brake lights go on and they shoot behind me, and I'm like, what the heck? And I'm like, okay, they're gone. You can't even see them in the rearview mirror. 2 minutes later, pull up beside me again. And the guy with the gas mask is waving at me. And yeah, and like that happened a few more times. They would speed up, slow down, speed up. Like they couldn't be in this. They were all over the place, weird. Changing lanes and everything. Yeah.
So the guy in the gas mask you think was sober? Like he wasn't breathing it in.
Wouldn't that be? You're breathing it in because the smoke was coming out of like the tube. That
it was going into.
Yeah, or something. Or he was smoking it in there.
I thought they were like hotboxing the car, and he just had like a
so the passenger sober and the driver.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was a weird one.
Wow. Yeah. That's weird.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We had a drunk, I guess, coming up when I was working as a server once, and he was angry that we didn't get him more drunk. He was like, you could tell he was like 8 beers deep when he came in. We gave him a couple Caesars, and he was you were like, you're cut off. Like you need to take a cab home. And he's like, yo, you think I'd be driving? And we're like, we just need to make sure. Like literally my legal obligation. You can't drive home kind of thing, right?
Some people think it's totally fine.
Yeah. And he was like, I'm going to tell all my friends not come here if you're not giving me more alcohol. I have a lot of friends. And we're like, fine, good riddance. This is a family restaurant. And then he went outside and peed in the potter plant outside.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What a guy.
Yeah.
What a guy.
So those are some weird ones, but yeah.
Do you want to talk about legalization? The last time we had this conversation, you told me you thought it was the dumbest thing ever. Like we'd been legalized
because there was no way to monitor it and reinforce like driving under the influence.
Okay, so you still think that then?
I still stand by that. We should figure out a way to fine people for breaking the law before we change the law to be that. It's like that. If the only way you're breaking the law now, not the only way, but you know what I mean, is driving under the influence. Like it was easy enough to figure out. Oh, you're high? Well, unless you have a green card, that's illegal. Like, that's easier, right? But when you start including, like, you have to have, like, a equivalent of, like, a blood alcohol level. Like, if there's that, like, that, you can't reinforce that right now. For for weed, yeah.
But if it got to that point, you'd think it'd be fine?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
I mean, like, you have no interest in doing weed.
Yeah.
But
that's the thing. Okay. I would raise the moral... so... I wouldn't legalize. If I was the prime minister, I would not legalize it. That's what I'm saying. I would not legalize it.
Okay. If it was legal, would you actively seek to criminalize it?
I don't know. But let's say me right now with Bradley, sitting here at this table, talking to you, Charles. It is legalized. I understand that not everyone has the same beliefs as me. So as long as it's not infringing on my safety, I probably wouldn't be campaigning to illegal. I wouldn't be actively wanting it to be illegal.
So
would I prefer it to be illegal? Maybe, but that's not the point I'm trying to make. I wouldn't have an active mind of like, no, this needs to be illegal right now, kind of thing.
I would say, my thing would be like if weed can definitely be a force for good, and I think it.
I mean, more so than alcohol, probably. That's the thing. It's like alcohol is really only.
I mean. Alcohol, it's like it's way more. It's a social thing, right? Like
if you doesn't have any,
Like if you take enjoyment in going out with friends, like getting really drunk, going out to the bar, it's like if you're trying to meet people, people are way more social when they're drunk, right? If that's an important aspect to you, right? Like.
Okay, so on the legalized topic then, what do you think of increasing taxes on those things? Like there's a lot of like European countries and stuff too that like have higher tax on alcohol and stuff like that. A lot of countries have like extra, like really high special taxes for alcohol just to make it, well, one, they're making more money off of it, I guess. But I wonder if the intent is to promote like, maybe you don't need to do this all the time since you can't afford to literally do this all the time, right? Would you be pro taxing it more and making it more expensive?
No, I don't think I would, because then you're just like, I mean, you don't. It's not like you cannot afford. You don't have to be smoking weed all the time or drinking alcohol all the time to not be able to afford it, right?
Yeah.
Like even if you even going out once a week, right? If alcohol is now 30% more expensive, right? That could affect your enjoyment of it. That could affect the frequency to which you do it. No, I wouldn't support taxing it more. I think like keep it affordable. Like because to me the tax would just be discouraging people from doing it. Well, and I don't think we need to discourage people from.
You have the tax rate now on cigarettes. Like cigarettes are hugely taxed, right?
Really?
Yeah. So is it a similar argument? Maybe, right? Or maybe you tax I don't even know if you tax the...
That's a good point. I don't think about the cigarette part.
Yeah. And that was definitely the right choice in hindsight, right? Like, that was the right choice.
Well, the adverse health effects of cigarettes are so much
and secondhand is a direct one rather than indirect. Indirect side effects of secondhand drinking, for lack of a better term again, is you get hit like driving under the influence, right? Like, that's the second hand use of it, I guess. Right. It's like you being the pedestrian that gets hit or whatever. But I guess with smoking, it's more, you see the more direct consequence of it. I don't know. Yeah, but yeah. I would much rather them do that and raise taxes on that than raise taxes on half of the things our government's talking about raising taxes on right now.
I mean, sure, if it's one or
that
the
or
other,
the banks, so that we just have to pay more in banking fees and
yeah. But no, generally, I don't think we should be.
I don't promote raising taxes in general for most things, but if we really had to pick something to raise taxes for some reason the government said we're all going to die if we don't raise taxes on one thing, that would probably be the one thing I would say then.
Right. I mean, I do think they should be taxed. Let's be clear.
An extra,
to some degree, they
like,
should be taxed.
There should be like an alcohol tax. Are you saying? Like, I think
there
is. I
think there is. I think there's a tax on weed too. There's a tax on all that.
But
stuff.
Not just
I don't think it should be. I don't think you should be doing that to actively discourage people from having a good time.
So when I went to Norway, if I remember correctly, Norway had like essentially like an extra tax on anything unhealthy.
Okay.
And the idea was if you do less unhealthy things, you actually save the government money. Because you're not at the hospital as much and stuff like that.
Okay.
Right.
And now it's the whole thing of what's unhealthy.
Yeah. Well, like, I think I had to pay like $5 for a chocolate bar.
Oh, so even like sugar.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it wasn't it wasn't pick and choosing. It was everything.
Fine. Yeah. I mean, for me that sucks because I'm diabetic, so I need to have like a stash of sugar with me at all times.
Mind you, maybe depending on the type of sugar, like depending on how much sugar you need, like a chocolate chip granola bar probably isn't taxed, right? Like it's probably just like. No nutritional value, only bad.
I mean, for a low blood sugar, you want pure sugar.
Okay,
right? Because it
and it might not be $5. I don't know if that goes. I don't know if that goes so far as to the raw ingredients of like chocolate chips and stuff like that. But but yeah, or like I went to the bar to get like a fish and chips, and I had a beer. Fish and chips. Everything's more expensive in Norway. The fish and chips was a little more expensive. The beer was like 2.5 times the price of a beer here.
That's crazy.
I think I paid the equivalent to like $15. Canadian for a beer at like a pub. It wasn't
for
even like
beer.
Yeah, it wasn't even like a high end, like downtown, like bougie kind of.
See, I don't think I support that. I mean, tax it fine, but don't make it so.
I'm just making an example.
For sure.
I think someone in Norway was telling me too that you can actually write off healthy things. Like you could write off like taking ski lessons. Because it promotes a healthy lifestyle once again. So the idea is if
an interesting
you pay less money now, but they have to spend less money on you when you're in the hospital. Like you're not gonna mind you might be in the hospital with a broken leg, but like you have to do like a heart bypass surgery and all these things, right? Like there's less they have to pay less there. Yeah, I don't know if that guy was full of crap or not, but I thought I sounded like that seems like an actual reasonable thing at face value.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. And it wasn't like you could go right off that you went like rock climbing once because that's not going to make you healthier. You had like courses or like year-long like season passes and stuff like that from what I remember. Yeah. Which I think is interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, it promotes healthier, and also promotes you like experiencing more things. Mm-hmm. If you're like, I don't know if I'd like skiing, but it costs $200, so I don't want to figure out. If you could write it off and get $80 of that back.
I wonder what the life expectancy is like in Norway. I wonder if that's actually had a tangible effect on like.
Yeah, I mean Norway is probably the richest country per capita in the world. You're aware of that?
That's the sovereign wealth fund.
The sovereign wealth fund.
Yeah.
$1.7 trillion. It literally had M3. So are you familiar with like M0, M1, M2, M3?
Yeah.
So M0 I think is all the actual cash in the world.
Okay.
M2 is all, or M1 is all theoretical cash. Like banks, you know how banks only have to hold like 10% of the actual cash they get as cash. So like they can actually give up. Like there's weird. Yeah. So it's that okay. We all have. I have 10 grand in the bank. You have 10 grand in the bank. There's only actually 5,000 cash there. Mm-hmm. M0 is 5,000. Okay. M1 would be 25. No, it'd be the 10 for me, the 10 for me, and then the 5 the bank has. So it'd be 25,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but something like that. And then M2 is like stocks or something, like things a little harder to get.
Okay.
Then M3 is like the hardest to get things or whatever. So M3 I think is $80 trillion, which is the vaguest concept of money. It's like the most like things that you actually couldn't even reasonably.
So wait, so is M2 is like assets? Like you said, you use
so.
stocks as an example, but it could be like real estate.
Yeah, stocks might have even been in M1, and M2 is like real estate, like things that are a little harder to get. Like
and then so you're saying M3 is above
this
that
broad, like it's like things that you really can't, like long-term government things. Like I can't even remember what they are, but just like like I said, the most broad sense of the term cash. Like it's just like I don't even know. Maybe it counts the like depreciation. Like I don't know. Just this broad blanket of like anything that has value, essentially, right? Like it's this.
Okay.
Anyway, it's $80 trillion. So the sovereign wealth fund, which is M1 or 2, because M1 is like 4 trillion, or M0 is 4 trillion or something. M2 is 10 trillion, then 50 trillion, then 80 trillion. So that's M1 or 2. So Norway has $1.7 trillion, which is M1 or something like that, which is like 2.5% of literally anything to do with money, which is a country of 10 million people or whatever it is, has the like a noticeable percentage just sitting there. Like they could literally give every single person $100,000 or something like that.
Oh, and probably still have money left over.
Hundreds of millions left over in the bank, which is
no, they definitely did fossil fuels the right way. That's for sure.
Yeah, not like us. Yeah, we did it wrong. But so they're doing something right. They make some smart choices.
It's insane.
It is funny that they have a blacklist of things that their sovereign fund can't invest in.
Okay.
And I think they put Russia on it because of that. Everything, which is
That's funny.
I think like a lot of Canadian like tar sands are. I think tar sands are on it and stuff too.
It's on the blacklist.
I think so.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. Anyways, drugs.
Back to drugs. Back to drugs. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we talked about legalizing a bit of marijuana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I support it. You had some sort of in between answer.
Yeah, I have qualms with it. I think maybe it was okay to legalize it, but maybe not when it was, and they should have found ways to. I feel like it was quickly done as a grab for like an election. You know what I mean? I feel like it was one of those like election promises that they only did to get votes.
No,
and they didn't really think about it a whole lot.
But even beyond that, I think I do think it was purely just an election thing. But I mean, I do think it was the result of it was good. Okay. I do think it's a good thing that it became legalized.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think now that it is legalized, it'll be way easier to do research with it and then now develop,
What if they figure out that weed is what if they figure out, because now that you have lots of more people, you have a way larger sample size. Mm-hmm. What if hypothetically they figure out that has way worse effects on you than cigarettes, like as far as cancers and stuff? What would you...
Hypothetically?
Hypothetically. Would you say, okay, let's make it illegal now, or what would your thoughts be?
I mean, if you're saying it's worse than cigarettes, hypothetically, I would say make it illegal.
Yeah, you say, okay, we legalize... But you wouldn't regret them legalizing it because it seemed like the right thing then.
Yeah.
It's a bit of hindsight 2020, right?
Sure.
Like, it's like,
I mean,
woops.
I really don't think that would ever happen.
No, but
if you're talking a hypothetical situation, if we found out it's worse than cigarettes, then ban it.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah. Do you think there's going to be any noticeable long-term negative effects of it? I'm not saying worse than cigarettes. I'm saying
I think
lung cancer because of smoke still going in your lungs.
I mean, it's the same thing as alcohol. I think, alcohol makes people alcoholic. That has an adverse effect on society.
Yeah.
Right? Same with weed. I think people are, now that weed is legalized, I think more people are going to become addicted to it, and that is going to have an adverse effect on society.
What about health?
What do you mean?
Health. Like, alcohol causes liver cancer, potentially. You know what I mean? Like, it increases your chances of that.
I don't know. All of the research that I'm aware of weed, the side effects are purely psychological. Okay. Like it's like it's like psychosis.
People
not
say
necessarily.
That there is literally zero proven. They say that there's never been a person that's died from weed, and that's a bit of a load of bull. You can pull up some research pretty quickly. That people have died of it, which isn't a bad thing in of itself. People die from picking flowers, right? Like, I don't know,
man. It's the question's too open. You have to narrow it more. It's true, like if someone like trips balls on weed and they commit suicide, does that count? Yeah. Or if it's like, I don't think the drug itself has actually been responsible for any death.
So you don't think you could overdose? You can't overdose.
No, you can't.
No.
I mean,
but anyway,
you can green out, like you can pass out, but it's not like you can smoke so much weed that you'll die. Like that's not a thing. Right?
People, I think that's the thing. Those people hear that statistic and they assume it means like no one's ever died of it within a 10-foot pole. Like, you know what I mean? Like whether it's suicide while tripping.
Well, again, like I said, the question's too open. You have to specify what you mean, right?
But like even from like long-term health, it's smoke in your lungs. It's going to increase your chance of lung cancer.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. Yeah. And then there's the psychological aspect of it too. Like if prolonged use of marijuana sort of inhibits like psychosis in your brain, then
or it ends up causing anxieties. Like, you know, those negative feedback loops. You drink alcohol to get out of depression. Like it's the depressant, right?
And then it makes you depressed.
So it makes you more depressed, which you need more. It's that how the neurons,
right?
The synapses fire or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So maybe some truth comes that weed. Not that you're in danger with how little you do it, but you know what I mean. Like if it comes out where like heavy users actually experience like a negative feedback of anxiety or something,
right?
Yeah,
right. Yeah, no, it's like there are definitely adverse health effects of it for sure, but I don't think they outweigh the potential positives. Okay. And I apply that to alcohol too. Maybe I would apply that to cigarettes. I don't know. I don't think we should make cigarettes illegal. I mean, they definitely suck.
They're not good.
They're not good.
I guess the nice thing is we've made it illegal smoking inside, right? We've made it illegal giving people secondhand smoking, right? Like that's we've effectively, mind you still like walk by it and stuff, but we've effectively eliminated the consequences of secondhand smoking.
Yeah,
like the major consequences.
Oh, for sure, and that's definitely good.
So now it's just on you.
Yeah.
Right. But I guess the difference between alcohol and weed, it's not just on you still, right? Like smoking. Me smoking outside then coming inside, I guess there's like smoke on me and stuff. Whereas alcohol or weed, you still have like you're still under the you become under the influence. Smoking doesn't put you under the influence, right? So that's the difference there.
Okay.
You can drive after smoking 5 cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
You might not enjoy it. You might throw up, but you could. But,
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Okay, other drugs.
Other drugs. Yeah, we talked about weed for like 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could hit on psychedelics for a bit. What do you know?
I
don't know anything.
I know there's shrooms.
Yeah.
I know there's shrooms, and I don't know what other ones even you would call.
Mm-hmm. I think we should definitely decriminalize psychedelics. I think we should make shrooms legal. I think we should, because to me, I'm looking at this purely from a intellectual standpoint. Like the amount that we could learn about our brains from psychedelics is like, it's insane. I think there's so much untapped knowledge there that we haven't been able to get to because psychedelics have been a taboo subject.
What do you mean by untapped knowledge? You don't mean that there's like a field of intellect that you can't reach unless you're under the influence of them, or do you mean research that can go into it and stuff?
Well, both.
Both.
Okay, both. Definitely both. Like I've heard, again, I haven't done shrooms, I haven't done any psychedelics, but like I heard some of the crazier ones, like DMT. It's like a life-changing experience. Like you take DMT and it changes the way you think about the world, and it's not not a bad way, like in a good way. Like it will. We talked about this a lot in our religion podcast, right? Like the human brain is so complicated. Consciousness is so unbelievably. We barely know anything about it, and psychedelics are able to produce consistent effects in different people, right? Like people who take DMT, for example, experience very similar things. It's always like it's almost as if you're being communicated with.
Weird.
It's definitely weird, but I think if we used more of psychedelics in like a research controlled setting to try to actually figure out what consciousness is, I think we could go a pretty long way with it, because I think there's, do you know what I'm saying?
So you're saying
that's what I mean by untapped knowledge.
Are you saying legalizing it across the board, or do you think just like making it less taboo to like to put research into it and stuff?
Yeah, so I think we should decriminalize it, and I think we should. I don't think we should legalize like DMT for just regular citizen use. Yeah. I think it's too crazy, but I think we should decriminalize it and allow it to be used in a research setting that's controlled, because I think the amount of untapped knowledge, the amount of potential for knowledge that we could gain from it, I think is too great to ignore.
So about a year ago, there was a movement called, so you had the weed stock boom, like in investing, right, in the stock market. Weed stocks were huge. And people thought when weed legalized, it was going to be all the things, right? Like it was going to be all the rage. But you quickly figured out the joke is like, leave it to the government to figure out how to lose money selling drugs, right? That's effectively what it turned. Like the government legalizes it, and then it just like nosedives, and no one's making money off of it, really. Right? So it suffered. But last year, I think they call it the shroom boom. A lot of shroom stocks from like psychedelic producers and truffles and stuff like that. They all started booming, and people were like, "They're the future. Shrooms are the future," and stuff like that. But so are they legal in like
shrooms are illegal in the
Netherlands?
They're in Amsterdam. I know Amsterdam is its own sort of district.
Law, kind of,
no, shrooms are legal in Amsterdam. Again, I think it's a good thing. I think shrooms can be very... I think I've heard Russell Brand describe it as this way. Psychedelics are more of less of a pleasure-seeking thing and more of a... what did he say? He said it on Joe Rogan. It was less pleasure-seeking and more... I forget what the exact word was. Something along the lines of more intellectual. More of like a spiritual gateway.
I think the thing about that, though, is that's something you easily get addicted to. Too.
I don't know. I don't know.
No, it's
I've
like
never
the
done
feeling of it even or something. Like, you're not even talking about like a literal addiction, but like a desire to like, you become like consumed by wanting to be in that state. Sure.
It's definitely possible with shrooms.
Yeah.
I think with DMT, like taking DMT is such a mentally taxing experience. I don't think it could be addictive because I don't think you would actually be actively seeking to put your brain through so much work on a consistent basis.
It's literally addictive, like with neurons and everything. Right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Because there's two different types of addictions, right? There's the coffee has caffeine, and caffeine's literally an addiction, right? Like your body gets used to that, and it needs that in order to like that's a literal addiction. Then there's the addiction of like, I really like video game Horizon, so I want to play Horizon when I get home, right? Like it's not so much a formal addiction, but you're like you're wanting to experience that feeling, right?
So, sure. Yeah, it's possible. Definitely possible. I don't know. I want to look into like DMT more in particular.
Yeah, I don't know much about any of it.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Why do you think it was illegalized to begin with? All these.
Well, I think it was
too state of mind.
Yeah, I think it was too. Who was it? Jordan Peterson made a really good argument about this. I think in the 60s we like really discovered what psychedelics were in a modern context. Like, you know, shamans, like tribal shamans have been using psychedelics for thousands of years. Like psychedelics have basically been a part of human history and human religion, right?
Yeah.
But like in the modern context, we only really figured out what their effects were in the 60s. And I think people were so afraid of that and put off by that they just made them illegal entirely.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and I think... you know, I don't necessarily think that was a good thing, because if psychedelics have been part of what's driving human cortical expansion, human knowledge for thousands of years, I think it's not necessarily a good thing to just throw it away, because in a modern context now it's too scary. Right? Okay. Does that make sense? I don't think that's a good thing.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Don't know if I agree, but I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. What else is there? We got hit an hour. Hard drugs.
Yeah.
We want to talk about hard drugs.
Sure. Yeah, we can hit on that for
Breaking Bad.
Meth. Yeah.
What's the new one? Fentanyl.
Yeah, there's. I feel like there's a new one.
Well, bath salts. There were bath salts, and the guy like ate the guy's face or something. He got shot like 12 times or something, and didn't drop, and literally it was like the zombie outbreak.
What's crazy is so many of those started out as pharmaceutical drugs that you could get prescribed for, and now people are
Wasn't cocaine like that?
I'm sure it was.
Or maybe not cocaine, but one of those, like, you know, like cocaine.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was. Yeah, probably.
Well, is it just an old wives' tale, or was cocaine actually in coke back in the day? Trace amounts of it.
That would probably be an old wives' tale.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Probably.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like there's coke.
It's not like people would drink coke and like have like be inebriated.
No.
Right? Like that's probably just a bullshit thing.
Yeah, that must be. Or like there's enough cocaine. Like there's like a measurable amount of cocaine in like 95% of bills. Like wallet.
Oh yeah. That could.
Or something. I can't remember the percentage.
Some myth.
But there's a lot. No, there's like no. That's a proven like
really
Vsauce. I watched a Vsauce video.
Oh, you might be right. Actually.
Not that you can get high off of it, but like everyone's saying, there was like the don't have money when you like a dog might be able to sniff it on you or whatever, and they're like no, like it's such a small amount that dog would be stopping on every person because that like you have that bill in your pocket, you now have that trace amount. In your pocket, or whatever, right?
Right.
Yeah. So do you think any of that should be decriminalized? Do you think that should be as illegal as possible?
I don't know, man. I mean, I definitely don't think it should be legal, right? Like, I think the fundamental difference between weed and drugs like that is it's, hard drugs like cocaine, heroin, meth. The drug itself, I think, is harmful. It's not like what I said with weed. It's not necessarily weed itself, it's the person who takes it that could be the problem. I think with harder drugs like meth, cocaine, and heroin, it's the drug itself.
And it's
that can be damaging.
Mental addiction too. Like we're saying this
right.
It's that literal addiction, and I think it's a severe downward spiral.
Exactly.
It's not a subtle one.
Right.
Yeah.
It's immediately addictive. Like you take heroin for the first time, and it's like you're done. You're fucking addicted, right? It's like that process. That process with weed is. First of all, it's not guaranteed, and second of all, even if it is, it's drawn out, right? Yeah,
you can see it coming and get help, kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Like, so that would be where I would draw the line.
Where do you think? So, I don't think it should be decriminalized. I don't know, maybe, but like for using it should still be criminal, maybe, but maybe have some forgiveness if it's someone that's literally been suffering it. Like if someone's been suffering from it, you know what I mean? Like a drug user Can a drug user be blamed for doing it the 10th, 11th, and 12th time? No. Can they be blamed for doing it the first time? Sure. But like, what's that? How do you properly handle that?
That's an interesting argument. So now, are you for like safe injection sites? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
But instead of punishing them, do you try to? I mean, I guess most of them do go to rehab, but like. Do you maybe not give them jail time if they're clearly addicted, and instead you?
I guess I would. I would support that. What I would support is like you take people like that, and then you give them the drugs that they need, right? But with that comes a caveat, right? Like with
There's
that
less every week. Like you're getting less and less.
Yeah, like you could be like, fine, you're addicted to heroin. You're probably gonna fucking kill yourself if you don't have any. So we'll give you some heroin, but we're gonna wean you off of it slowly, and part of this is rehab. Like if you're going to agree to us giving you heroin, you have to agree to taking X amount of rehab sessions a month,
or you're in an actual like rehab facility.
Yeah, and my understanding is like
this is not jail. This isn't like a fine. You're not gonna maybe you don't even put it on the criminal record. Even I don't know, right? But you're just like we need to get you off of this.
Right. Yeah. Make it like a. Yeah, I would agree.
I don't know if I agree with safe injection, but maybe that's if that's the safest way to do it. If they're literally more likely to like kill themselves or die from withdrawal.
Well, the thing is needles too, right? Like the whole point of safe injection sites literally is to give people safe needles so they don't reuse.
But what if they're in a rehab center? There's just no drugs in there. Like I don't even. Once again, we're speaking as a guy that's not done drugs at all, and a guy that's not done any hard drugs or anything close to that. Right. So, like, is it actually that dangerous for them to just be in a? What if they were just like in a camp? Isn't the right word, but like a facility that's other drug users, and there's just no drugs in there, and they're just like it's almost like an ultra low security jail, almost, right? You know what I mean? It's like you have like houses, you can just like.
It's not a penal system. It's not a penal, right?
It's a remediation system, right?
Sure.
So you go in there, but I mean, I've had low security, like no fence around, but it is like there's guards, maybe.
Yeah, people just keeping tabs on stuff. Yeah.
But I don't know if that means you have safe injection. Like, would someone die from withdrawal?
Oh, dude, totally.
So do they need to have safe injection to even live?
Yeah,
in that facility?
I think so.
Okay, if that's the case, then okay. But if that's not the case, then just make them.
Dude, people can die. Like whether it. I don't know too much about drugs, but what you can certainly say is that people could commit suicide if they're not getting the drugs that they need because their lives are just.
Or do you have a medically approved substitute you can use to like? maybe you don't give them heroin, but maybe there's like a more medical, like a safer drug that like can alleviate the withdrawal.
Dude, I think there's an ethical implication of that because now because like with
something else,
fentanyl, right? Like now if that
yeah.
gets out to the public, now you've just created a whole other problem single-handedly, right? No, I think there's the ethical implications of that are too big.
I didn't think about that. You would need doctors on site though, at least, right? Like this facility.
Yeah, you would need
have
professionals.
doctors,
Yeah, no, it's I don't think you'd
nurses and doctors. And,
right.
Yeah.
Psychiatrists, like these facilities would have to be helping people get off of the drugs they're addicted to, not just simply a place to do them. That's what I would say.
Going through that's almost the punishment for the first time they did drugs. You know what I mean? Like I told you, you can like arguably punish someone for doing meth the first time or two, but it's hard to throw someone in jail for doing it.
The thing is, I don't think the vast majority of people addicted to drugs like that would view it as a punishment. Because I think they would want to get off of the drugs.
But that's how the court system could view it, right? Like it's like here's what punishment is: you're being taken away from society and you're being slapped on the wrist. Right? Like, this, mind you, you've been taken away from society as long as you've been doing meth, I guess, in that argument, too. Okay. You've been in jail the last... But, like, that's kind of what it would be. Is like, the court system could view it as that. They're going into rehab for 6 months or a year or whatever, and that's their quote-unquote jail time. Like, I know people, and without saying things, like, I know people in low-security jail, and it's pretty dang chill, for lack of better terms, right? Like it's not like they're trying to punish. Jail isn't necessarily punish you. It is supposed to be to rehab you, right? So that's what I mean. The court, like, it's not jail, and you wouldn't maybe put on the criminal record even, but like, it's a substitute for jail, right? Maybe that's the best way to say it. Like it's not like once you're sober, you're getting thrown in jail for doing drugs, but the substitute for jail is you go through rehab and get off it.
Right. Yeah. So you and I are totally on the same page here. What would you say to the sort of the portion of like hardline conservatism that would say no drugs whatsoever? Doesn't matter if we're going to wean you off them. We're not going to give you drugs at all because it's quote illegal. What would we say to people like
if that's literally going to? I get it because I also kind of think it that way. But if it's literally going to kill them from withdrawal.
But even if it doesn't kill them, you still want to wean them off of it. You like even if
I don't like is that actually
well you don't want them doing the drugs, right?
No, but
like,
if they're in a facility and they don't have access to the drugs, aren't you able to just rip off the Band-Aid if it's not going to kill them? And they're in like a
it would make it way more difficult, right? It might even make it impossible. Like you might to even if you might need to slowly wean people off drugs like that for them to actually get to the point where they would not be addicted anymore. Maybe the whole ripping off that Band-Aid thing might not even work.
True.
You know?
Like I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it would have to be whatever worked, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Like again, we're speaking from as two people who have never done drugs like that, but I would definitely assume that the weaning off strategy would be way more effective than the ripping off the Band-Aid strategy, right?
I don't know. In most situations, you rip off the Band-Aid to get over something quicker.
Yeah, but is it as effective? Are you going to relapse easier? Are you going to be, right? Like, I seriously doubt it would be less of... I doubt that would be more effective.
What basis do you have for that? Like, you have like... I don't know, like, it's... Coffee is an additive. It would be... Sure, I would have headaches for a week. Or cigarettes. Cigarettes are the best one. People say they try to wean off their cigarettes. And that never works. Keep some in the house. I'm only going to smoke one a day. Now I'm going to smoke
I've heard it does work with vapes. Like, if you have a vape with nicotine in it, and you can control with the vape how much nicotine you smoke, you can slowly... You can not program, but you can allow the vape to give you less and less nicotine over time to the point where you would not have to...
I've heard that hasn't worked as well as... So maybe we both just... I don't know. Maybe it's just different news.
Well,
maybe it's just this... Maybe there's a split. Maybe it is pretty even. Like either way works even or something.
Maybe. But, I mean, it would have to be whatever works. And I think if the ripping off the Band-Aid solution doesn't work, I think we would need to wean people off.
But what if the ripping off the Band-Aid does work? Then you just say, do that then? Because rather than not do heroin, I guess it would be better if all things are equal.
I think the all that matters is the ultimate goal of getting them off it. I don't think them doing it. If they have to do it to get off of it, and if that makes it easier for them, I don't think it matters. right?
Okay.
Did that make sense? What I just said. If they have to do their drugs in order to slowly wean off the drug to get to the eventual point where they're not addicted to it anymore.
If the alternative is they're back out in the streets doing it 10 times as often.
But even if the alternative is the rip off the Band-Aid solution, even if the ripping off the Band-Aid solution works, but it's more difficult and it's easier for them to relapse afterwards.
That's what I mean. If the alternative is they like end up back in the street.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah.
Interesting.
So are you?
The problem with all of our arguments though is that those drugs are real expensive. So this would be a really expensive rehab system. That'd be the other argument too. Is giving them a clean inject site or safe use site would be maybe cost prohibitive. Because if you have 100 people in this facility all doing meth and heroin's hundreds of dollars a dose or whatever, like that could be literally just like prisoner. Don't they say that like the average prisoner costs the government like $60,000 a year or whatever? If that prisoner had to be given heroin at first once a day, then whatever, right? Like whatever number ends up being, like that $60,000 prisoner easily turned into a $500,000 prisoner.
I guess you would have to figure out the amount of money that would go back into the economy from people who were rehabilitated.
Sure,
right?
But I'm just
like,
saying
could there be any economic benefit to rehabilitating people, and would that make up for the initial cost of running these facilities?
Maybe. I guess that's a more layered argument, though, of how many of the ripped off Band-Aid ones would relapse if they do relapse.
Oh, so you're looking at it purely from like the cost of the drug part. I feel like running the facilities themselves would just cost even more than the actual drugs themselves. I feel like that would be, like just running the facilities and staff.
Drugs that. Also, remember though, the drugs are that expensive and they're made in a guy's toilet or whatever, right? Like if you're making them in an actual safe lab, it's going to be
like if you could make them in house, like if these facilities were literally making cocaine,
it'd be more expensive
and heroin
to have like proper like measuring and proper.
Right, but then it's safe. Then you're not getting cocaine from Venezuela,
like I said though, if this person literally costs $500,000 a year to clean up, and you have 100 people in the facility. Like, it might not even be economical. Like, it literally might not be economically feasible.
I mean, I don't think you necessarily can be looking at it as a zero-sum game. Like, you have to be looking at it of... There's going to be some cost to improving public health, and you're going to have to take that
but is that
for the sake of public health,
Is that the best place to use the money?
Like, lots of people are addicted to drugs.
No, but is it better to rip off the Band-Aid there and have a 95% success rate instead of...
Dude, I do not think it would be 95%. Sure, I think it would be way less.
Even weaning off wouldn't be 100%. So let's say your weaning off is 50%, ripping off the Band-Aid is 40%.
Dude, I think the difference is way more than that.
I think
in my personal opinion, I think ripping off the Band-Aid would maybe be 20% and weaning off would maybe be closer to 60 or 70.
You think it'd be that big of a difference?
Yeah.
I don't think it would be.
Well, especially because, like, my argument for that would be these people, they don't want to be addicted. They want to get off.
Yeah.
They want to get rid of their addiction.
Yeah.
Right? So now you have the motivation there, right? If you make it easier for them by giving them the weaning off
but you're assuming
option,
it's easier for the weaning off. Like we're both making inherent assumptions in
this.
But like we're both assuming that our method's the better method without really any science to back it up besides me saying
fair enough.
How would I like to get off of coffee, right?
Okay, it's purely an opinion.
But it would be an economic question, right? Like let's say they're both 20, whatever X difference. The difference is one's Y, one's X.
Okay.
The difference is Z, right?
Yeah.
So if weaning off is better, you'd have to look at what Z is. Mm-hmm. And the money that it would take for that Z difference, and is that money better used somewhere else for just that possibly small percent change, right? Like, is it best to do the Band-Aid method, save X, or save Z amount of dollars as well, and then like, there's a formula there, right?
Sure,
like,
there'd be a huge.
Is the Band-Aid enough? Is X enough? And then the money from the Z money can be used for homeless people, like a homeless problem or something like that, or some other problem, right? Because ultimately there is only so much money that can be spent, right? So sure, given unlimited resources, we can have this elaborate system or whatever, right? But
so for you, it's not people doing the drugs themselves that's the issue. It's purely the monetary aspect.
Was that the best way? Then literally, is that the best way? If that's literally the best way, okay, I am open to it. But if Band-Aids are literally the better way, then or if Band-Aids are even close, I would say to do the Band-Aid method. Because the monetary comes in then, yeah.
Sure. Okay, yeah, that's...
Like I said, we both came in with assumptions that those...
Right.
Which method...
We both actually... I didn't do any research about this. You didn't either.
No,
so
it just
we're
came
both...
up. Yeah,
this is really just opinionated. Yeah. So maybe that's as far as we can take this conversation.
I don't know. We both based it off of different things that we've heard about people get off cigarettes.
Right.
So, yeah. And then I was comparing it to coffee for a second, and I'm pretty sure coffee is a far cry from...
I mean, I have heard that weaning off argument for hard drugs. Like, I'm not just referencing that entirely from nicotine. Like, I have heard that.
Also, any research that is there is very limited because of how hard it is to do.
So I think that fundamentally has to change. I think we have to make it easier to do research with drugs like this. And I think if making them criminalized is just going to be an unnecessary
So you're saying criminalize the selling of it, everything on that end, but just decriminalize the use of it.
If you could even, yes, sure, decriminalize the use of it so people within these facilities won't be charged. And
research can be done on people.
Yeah.
They can be more open about it.
Yeah, I would support that entirely. What about you?
Maybe, I don't know, but wouldn't that also increase the people that do use it? But no, but then you're also getting into the argument those drugs are so messed up and bad are the people that are going to do it breaking rule. Like, is legalizing it really going to make more people do it?
I'm not saying legalize it.
Is decriminalizing going to really result in more people using it? Because let's be real, like, maybe not you because you did weed before it was legal, but you being someone, you don't do weed now. No. Would you try it if it's legal? Maybe. Do you do heroin right now? No. Would you try it if it's legal? No. Right? So I'm kind of curious on how the numbers would change. Illegal, decriminalized, legal, like how the usage changes.
I definitely don't think we should.
I don't
make
think
it
it's
legal.
much.
That'd be crazy.
No,
but
But I wouldn't be surprised if the usage doesn't change a whole lot between those two.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either.
Because, like I said, people got into that through. I don't know, right?
Right.
They're gonna do it anyway. Yeah. And no one's the only. I would go so far as to say no one is only not doing heroin because it's illegal. You know what I mean? Like there's other bigger reasons why they don't do it, right? Like no one has that as the only dividing line between them doing cocaine and not doing cocaine. Yeah.
Man, I'll be honest, before we did this podcast, I assumed we were going to disagree about a lot more. I really didn't think you would be as what's the word? You're obviously not pro-drug, but like...
Definitely not pro-drug.
I didn't think you would be as open-minded about it as you are. I really thought you would be more hardline, like, no, drugs are...
Well, I do think drugs are bad, but then you have to also ask the question of, like, one, does everyone have the same opinion as me? And two, lots of things are bad, but does that mean it should be illegalized? Should gambling be illegal? Right, it's bad. Gambling is bad. In general, you lose money. Like it's literally meant to drain you for money. Oh right? Yeah. Like it's universally bad. No one like. It's a math equation. It's literally math, right? Like in the long term, you're losing money. Even if you win the lottery once, unless you run away with it, if you keep going, you're losing your money within the next 10 years, right? Like it's literally meant to drain you your money. But does that mean it should be illegal? Because what's gambling? Like, can I not make a $5 bet with my friend? That right? Like, is that? You can't bet a coffee that's something, right? Like,
there's also the economic benefits too, like economic benefits of casinos, economic benefits of like taxing weed, alcohol, all that stuff. Like, is that necessarily going to not outweigh all the negatives, right?
I also want to do a podcast on gambling.
That'd be an interesting one.
Because I don't gamble. It'd be fun because we can get into the whole like. Do you think you'd be good? Like, what would you do if you were to go to Vegas? Like, what would you be attracted to get over? Like, I think there's some fun conversations there. Yeah.
No, that's a conversation for sure. Yeah. It's like
I think that could be a good hour. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should we end the podcast? Do we have anything else you want to say? Or?
I don't think so. Like, we can always do a part 2
if we wanted. I think we kind of hit everything. We hit weed. We hit psychedelics. We hit like the harder drugs.
Yeah. We could do one on legal drugs.
On illegal drugs?
Legal drugs.
Oh, okay.
Advil.
Oh, like pharmaceuticals. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that was pretty good.
That was good. Hour and a half. Yeah, hour
and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for tuning in. We're the Art of Podcast.
Yeah. Thanks for coming and doing drugs with us.
Okay, ciao for now.
Ciao for now.